Hey.
Hello, how you doing? It's
Uh,
like a weird setup. It's like a psychological, like it's a small room and two couches.
yeah, but at least we are face to face, so
Yeah, that's true.
doesn't
That's
like
true.
therapy yet. At least I'm not charging you.
That's true. Or
Uh-huh.
I'm not charging you. That's true.
I think I look more qualified.
Do you think you look more qualified than me? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm Jewish. I have glasses,
yeah, that's true.
but you have the Asian thing going.
I'm a woman, so not
Also,
so.
you're a woman.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, who are you?
My name is Ori Halevy. You know me. I'm a writer, a comedian. I'm a human being. God damn it. That's what I am.
So you're a human being.
I think so.
Cool. What
Yeah.
brought you to Berlin?
What brought me to Berlin? I guess I escaped.
Mm-hmm.
I come from Israel.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I like Israel. I like my family, my friends, and the country. But it's tense. It's a tense place.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually grew up in Germany when I was a kid for 4 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Uh,
And my parents worked here. And then when I came back to Israel, it was the age of 6, and it was kind of like coming to a foreign country for me.
mm-hmm.
So it was very weird. Like my whole upbringing, I was always feeling like I'm a tourist, even
Mm-hmm.
though it was my place.
Mm-hmm.
And I always wanted to leave. I didn't know to where, but apparently it's Berlin. So
Uh-huh.
then many years later, I moved here.
Do you speak German?
I used to. When I was a kid, I spoke fluent German for a kid.
Uh-huh.
And I forgot most of it.
Okay.
But actually, my English is from Germany because I went to an American school for the first year.
Uh-huh.
And then I kept it up. I spoke with my sister and then a good friend of mine, and then it's stuck. So
So, how long are you in Germany now?
4 years.
And you still don't speak German?
I got a lot better. I got like the recently we went to a German film without
Uh-huh.
subtitles and understood most of it.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Then your German is probably better than mine.
I mean, I
Uh-huh.
have the basis, like it's in
Mm-hmm.
my subconscious a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think I'm getting better. I can hold a conversation like I'm an idiot in a conversation
Uh-huh.
with Germans. But I can stay it's like riding a wave before they find out that you shouldn't be speaking German and they switch to English. So I'm riding the wave. I'm crashing at the end, but I'm riding it for a while, so
Uh,
that's nice.
wow, cool.
Yeah.
So, what do you? I forgot my words. So,
You forgot your
what's
words
your relationship with this mental health topic?
with mental health.
Yeah.
I don't have any mental health. That's I came to look for some.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean I've been struggling with it my whole life. I think I got anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I think first of all I have ADHD, which is the basis of a lot of anxiety. So my brain is scattered, and I have like recently I discovered how much the H is important in ADHD. That's why they say you should do sports
Mm-hmm.
because the energy has to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do sports, then it goes into your head, and then
Mm-hmm.
it hits your imagination, and everything
Mm-hmm.
starts
Mm-hmm.
moving around. And I think I've had a lot of that through the years, like a lot of anxious thoughts and what ifs that become like scenarios that I have to solve in my head,
Mm-hmm.
and so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that kind of stuff.
How do you know you have ADHD?
I was diagnosed when I was a kid.
How old were you?
I don't remember. I think it was it 10 or 12, something like that. They started giving me like more time and tests
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. And I remember I used to, on my own kind of volition, I had a meditation tape when I went to high school, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I had a meditation tape which I would ask to put on during tests because everything, if something happened outside the classroom, I would be, all my attention would go there.
Wow.
So I had like meditation tapes I would listen to, and they would be like repeating this,
Uh-huh.
and I could have used them for cheating, but I never did. I just
Uh-huh.
used it for meditation. So
Wow.
yeah, a lot of my tests I did like that.
Your symptoms of ADHD sounds like you were a labradoodle.
The what? The what? Labradoodle?
Yeah.
I mean, in what way do you mean?
Like your attention goes away
Yeah,
easily, and you get anxious easily, and
yeah,
you have lots of energy.
yeah. So that's the. So it's like the fuck with ADHD is like anything remotely interesting, whether it's outside or inside, will grab your attention. So let's say if I'm in a room and then there's a loud noise, I'm interested. Or let's say you and I are talking, but then somebody else is talking and they say my name. So now my attention is divided between this conversation and that conversation. I can go percentage wise. But when I was a kid, it would just be, oh, now my attention's over here, and now my attention's over there.
Wow.
And with the energy, it's like I have to do something. And I realized through time that it also works internally. So any negative thought you have is much more dramatic than any regular thought you're having. That's why anxiety is so attractive. You know, that's why anxious thoughts. What happens if I die? What happens if I get a disease? What happens if somebody I know? What happens if I run out of money? So all these kind of, it's like watching, like it's like you're watching Netflix and you're picking, you know, a movie to watch every time. So would you watch Breaking Bad or would you watch, you know, gardening shows? So life is a gardening show mostly, and Breaking Bad is you know, a reason to get dramatic, you know, anxious.
Wow. So did you take medication?
No, like when I was a kid, no. There was no Ritalin back then. So my parents took me to specialists, and they helped me a lot. So today, like I'm still like, the anxiety is, I think, the main bothersome thing that I have left from ADHD. But I know how to focus much more. I know how to do that. Like I know how to work with my focus. I know how to use my imagination a lot. The problem is when anxious thoughts become strong, and I stop identifying them as anxious thoughts, and then I just become anxious. And I only recently have I come to understand how much it has to do with the H part of the ADHD, like the hyper part, because it's really that. Like if I sit all day, I can't. It's just unbearable. I have to move. I have to like. I've learned through time to control my hyper, so I don't have to do things all the time. When I was a kid, I was running around all the time, and now I can calm. I'm calm. Like if people would describe me from the side, they wouldn't describe someone who's very jumpy or anything like that. So I know how to calm down, but I mean, so from time to time I take anti-anxiety pills now or anti-depression pills sometimes when it gets too much. But normally, like for many years, I didn't.
Did you do lots of sports when you were young?
So I did sports until I had started having back problems when I was 30. So I kind of did sports until I was 30. I didn't do a lot, but I did do something all the time.
Have you tried yoga?
I have tried yoga. It fucked my back once as well.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it helps with
it
back
does,
pain.
but you have to be very attentive to what you're doing, and if you're doing it wrong, you can fuck your back, and that's what I did. Now that my back is better after I did an operation, I'm sticking with swimming and bicycles. Like everything you do has the potential to harm you as well, so I'm trying to be careful about that.
Wow, it sounds like a very fragile flower.
It's not about being fragile, it's just about when I fucked my back up when I was 31 or 2, I was just taking like, back then in Israel, it was a stupid fucking, you couldn't take an electric bike on the train.
Oh.
So you had to carry it. You always had to carry it, and it was super heavy. For some reason, you couldn't just roll it on the train like regular bikes. And I lived far away from where I was working, so I had to get on every day, get off, and then so I had to carry it every day. And this is like 25 kilos back then, or something like that. And it fucked my back up. I did it for a year. It fucked my back up. I broke a disc. Like I didn't break, but I had a broken disc. And and it fucked my back up. And ever since then, I've been careful. So I went to chiropractors, and then I did yoga, and then something happened, and then I did this, and then something happened, and now I did this operation. Knock on wood. everything's good, but I'm very protective of my own body. Like I understand that you have to be super protective of your body.
You sound your back pain sounds like you are from like a very third world country, like because of hard labor.
Because of hard labor, yeah, something like that, yeah.
So you said that over the years you learned ways to calm yourself down, to make yourself focus. Well,
Yeah.
what works for you?
I think first off, I only do what I love, so I think that's very important. It's very hard, I think, for somebody with ADHD to not do what they love, because then you're not interested. When you're not interested, you have to force yourself to do things, and that's horrible. But I think the fact that I had, like, when I was a kid, then my parents took me to good professionals. One of them is a psychologist. I went through during the years. Now I went back to her when I was in Israel, and we have once a week Zoom meetings, once a week. But she taught me like how to focus my attention. So how to train myself to focus my attention on a certain thing. When I was a kid, it was more like make something like, let's say if you have to do homework, make it into a TV show, make it into a, now pretend this has to do the Simpsons or something, you know, and then I did that. So you kind of train your focus. And through time, also I love directing. So when I direct, it's like 5 things happening at the same time. I feel like I'm living my potential.
Wow.
Because I can focus on like 5 things at the same time. Not 100%, but I can, like if there's different levels of percentages that I need to be aware of at the same time, I can do that.
What do you mean 5 things at the same time?
So let's say when I'm directing, there's the actors, right? Then there's the camera work, and then there's the background, like what is happening in the background. And then maybe there's little details that need to be taken into account while things are happening. So let's say all these different things I'm able to do, and then I'm also able to, if I have an assistant director, she says something, or so I'm able to have all this information coming in at the same time and being able to kind of understand what is happening and carrying. Like my wife in the beginning of our relationship, she got offended when I was on my phone while listening to her. But then she realized I listen better to her when I'm on my phone, because I don't have to make, if I have like other thoughts at the same time, then I might be, so you might be talking to me and I can't control the fact that I'm also thinking about 2 other things, but at the end of this conversation, I will still know exactly what you said.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's stuff like that.
You sound like you are on cocaine.
Well, cocaine actually gets you focused. Cocaine doesn't make you, doesn't break your attention span.
Really?
The reason like people take Ritalin and cocaine is it does the opposite. Well, I don't know if that's the reason, but one of the reasons.
So, did you learn some special tools from your therapies?
Well, I did, but I was a kid, so I don't remember all of them. I can say one thing that I said already is like putting some meaning into an action that maybe is not necessarily there. You know, like imagining while you're doing something, imagine it's like I don't know, it's like you're working on a special project, or you're a secret agent. You know, so let's say you're working on the mental health thing, so pretend you're a secret agent organizing a thing, right? So suddenly everything becomes more interesting, and your thought is like into it, because you're making up details, right?
Wow, like now I can see why you became a writer.
Yeah. It's a lot of it. Like I honestly, one of the things that keeps my insanity at bay is writing. Like when I write, I feel better. After I write, after I get all this kind of scenarios out, I feel better. It's just the way it is. It's like taking a pill. It's what it is, and I don't know where it comes from. It just, you know.
So cool. And I when you told me you were diagnosed when you were like 10, 12.
I think so, yeah.
I was quite impressed because sounds like in your country there's good healthcare system. They would diagnose a kid because
socialist country.
Yeah.
Used to be. Yeah.
Because in most of countries it will just be treated as like a bad kid.
Yeah. In China it's like, oh, he has problems, just throw him out the window.
I didn't say that.
No, so many Chinese people. No.
Yeah, but like in most of countries.
How would it be in China though, for real?
Yeah, that's true. Like because you are Jewish.
No, how would it be in China? I'm asking.
I think in China, like lots of mental illness are not really diagnosed because for average people, medical resources are very hard to get, and like even for physical treatments. So like mental health is really overlooked. There's just not enough resource. I think as far as I know, people wouldn't go to see a professional until it's like really out of control. But on the other hand, there's also not so many like mental health service providers. Yeah, I think in China, when people say mental health issue, is more about they are killing people and they already lose the touch with reality. But for like anxiety and depression, it's just most people wouldn't treat it because most people are anxious and depressed. And but it's just different symptoms, like in different ways. For example, like we call it stress, we call it like being lazy. No, and it's very different than here. Like here, when you talk with people, very soon you can, I have anxiety, I have a depression, I have a ADHD. In China, I never know anyone who's actually diagnosed.
So I liked your joke when you have this joke when you came here and you're like suddenly you realized you have white people problems. That's like depression and stuff.
Yeah, I think for example, I told my mom like I'm depressed, I have other symptoms, I don't want to live, I feel life is miserable, I don't want to go to work, and then I don't feel hope, everything is meaningless. And my mom said, yeah, that's how I feel, so what? Like why are you bitching about this? This isn't normal.
It's interesting. Like older generations, I feel like their treatment, which by the way is not always a bad thing. Like I think it is problematic when things are undiagnosed and then they become worse. But I think that we are also very sensitive to, like I used to ask my dad, how are you feeling today? And he said to me, he always said the same thing. He said, I don't have time to think about nonsense. And I used to think that was a bad statement when I was a kid, but the older I get, I'm like, well, that's pretty smart. Because at the end of the day, dwelling too much on how you feel and how you know, it doesn't necessarily help.
I disagree. I
so?
think on one hand, I understand what you mean. Like I can see it on myself. For example, I had a lot of hardship until late years. And I could say I went through so much, but then I crashed when I had the most in life. And now looking back, I realized, oh my God, I was so tough in the past, and now I just cannot tolerate any stress. Otherwise I freak out. I just want stress free. I really want to relax myself. I understand what you mean. Like on one hand, I really lost this strength. But on the other hand, I'm just so much more happy.
No, I get that. I think it's a combination of both. I think when we're in a state of like, you know, acting up, like depression or anxiety and stuff, it has to be treated. But I also think that in the times in between are kind of like traps towards, I think, I don't know, it's for me specifically, maybe it's not everybody, but so I think that there are times where I'm, like I call it my period, right? And it comes often.
Yeah.
So, which means I'm not pregnant, I guess, in a weird way. But, so I have these periods of time, like let's say this last week, I had this really shitty time. Like I had anxiety and I was depressed and I had this show that I felt went very bad, but people told me it was good, but I felt like I was fighting myself, and I was just like, I was out. And I still feel the effects of that, like a few days, a week later. So when it is happening, I slowly like look at it and I see that I'm going through a thing and I'm suffering, and then I'm, you know, and then I like, there's even a point where when I see that I'm too I can't make a decision. So that's a symptom for me. Like I can't make a decision. So I tell my wife, you make all the decisions for the next 2 days. You tell me what to do and I'll do it. And then I feel weak. So for today, for example, which is still, I'm not completely over the thing. It's Monday, and for my routine that I do, I want every day to get up and work and do all that stuff. But I also feel that I'm weak. And then, so I said, all right, I am consciously just going to wake up whenever I wake up. I'm going to do whatever I'm able to do. I'm not going to stress myself out.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow, maybe I'll start again with my routine. And I feel like, so those are days where I'm very attentive to myself. And I feel like sometimes when things are better, and so the anxiety is always at bay. It's always there, and it's a trap. Anxiety is like, I think anxiety, maybe depression is, I think my depression comes from anxiety. So first I have anxiety and then depression comes.
I read this book called Lost Connections by Zhang. I really like one statement he made. He compared lots of study and dig very deep. Realized actually anxiety and depression is the same thing. Like now for lots of organizations, they don't fund researches which treat depression and anxiety as different. Because he says it's like the same song played by different cover band.
Interesting.
It's just a different direction of the same thing.
So what are the different directions? What's like one?
Like anxious is the fast, more intense reaction of this unhappiness, and the depression is more like passive, more slow reaction to this.
Interesting. Yeah. So for me, it comes from the fast-paced first. Maybe it has to do with the hyper. And I think that what happens is, because it's like it took me many years still to today. I'm struggling with the idea of like admitting to myself that I have a problem. It's called depression or anxiety. I have to reconfirm that to myself all the time. Just remember that I have this thing, because it feels unfair. You know, it feels like a disability in a way. You know, so because it's always at bay, I feel like the constant dwelling on it can also trigger it. So I feel like when it is obvious that now I have to deal with it, that's one thing. And then when it's not, when I have the opportunity to not be, you know, like heavily engaged with it, then I would rather not think about it. And I would rather put my focus on things that I'm enjoying in the moment. Because I feel like I can train my brain, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I can train my brain when I don't have to be very like aware and happy in the moment and grateful for what's happening. And like, it's like, I feel like it's like having a kid that you're trying to give him like good, you know, like superlatives, like saying, hey, look at how nice, this is good of you that are you noticing it. This is, you know, there's a thing with dogs, for example. So dogs are like, if anything you say to a dog, if you yell at a dog, that's still positive reinforcement to him. So if a dog does something that you don't like and you're yelling at the dog, it doesn't necessarily teach him not to do it. He can also be happy because you're now addressing them. So what we think sometimes, I think, is like focusing on I need to think about anxiety and think about all this stuff, could also us just training our brain to continue living in that area even when it's not necessary. And that's what I'm trying to kind of figure out now. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, it's my own personal process, but
I don't really understand what you say, but it sounds very intelligent.
I don't know if it is. I don't know.
Because when you say dwelling on your anxiety and depression, what do you mean?
I mean, what I said about my father's statement, right? It's just like, how do you feel right now? It's like, I don't have time to think about nonsense. So it is nonsense in a way. It is. I actually talked to my therapist about it. She said, psychologist, she said, I told her about the thoughts that I have sometimes. She said, well, those are anxious thoughts.
Yeah.
And I told her, I thought this was introspection. She says, no, introspection is understanding why.
Yeah.
right? And not if, what if, it's why.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, so it's why something is coming from. So I think a lot of the times, if you ask me, how are you doing, I'm going to have to think about this.
Oh, okay.
And that takes me to a realm that if I just go one step deeper in there, it's easy for my anxiety to take over, like that.
Okay.
And if you don't ask me how I'm doing, or you ask me how I'm doing and I'd be like, fine, and let's move on, let's not talk about it, then I might be actually training my brain not to automatically go to that, like the place that triggers anxiety.
I start to understand what you mean. I think it's hard for me to understand because I also have anxiety issue, but I guess compared to you, I'm quite light on that area. So for me, when I think about the anxiety part, is for example, I have these thoughts. For example, before I quit my current job, I was like, okay, what if this happen? What if that happen? I go crazy, but then I try to think about a way to realize, oh, what will happen in the worst scenario? And then I realize, oh, in the worst scenario, it's not even that bad.
Yeah.
So I just stop thinking about this thing because I realize, make myself believe I'm safe, I'm in a good place. And I think what you said means, okay, you just stop thinking about what if at all. Just cut the connection completely. Yeah. I think for me, I'm not able to do that. I cannot cut it off. But if I can end this thoughts by finding the worst scenario, which is not bad, then I can stop. But before that, I can't. I'm out of my control.
So that doesn't work for me. Like I can do the worst case scenario, but then I have to do it again. So it doesn't. My brain doesn't rest from it. It's just like it would rest from it periodically. Oh, the worst that can happen is this. Okay, that's fine. And then next day, what if again? So now I have to recheck my logic. It's like a physicist that's checking his own equation again and again.
Okay.
And again.
I think I'm a little bit similar, but a little bit different. Like, for example, the first day, it takes maybe like 10 different scenario, like 10 different layer.
Yeah.
Finally, for myself, like to realize it's not that bad. Then the second day, maybe I only run like 2-3 iteration before I remind myself the worst scenario is not bad. And maybe at the end, it's like before I even think about it, I already tell myself, you don't need to think because you already know the worst scenario is okay.
Well, whatever works, whatever works for you is good. I'm trying to train myself. Like I always try to find some level of solution for myself. And I don't know if it's good or bad, but right now, this is my focus. My focus is try to get away from it, try to identify it, try to get away from it. And when it happens, try to find the quickest way of acknowledging it in order to suffer quietly in a way. And then I can give away tools. For example, if I say, I know that I'm in this period right now, I'm not going to be able to solve it. So I'm going to give away authority. I'm going to say to Ila, you make the decisions right now. I'm going to tell someone, look, I'm depressed right now. So if I said this and that, I apologize. Or if I, right now I'm not thinking straight. So let's not deal with these certain topics right now. Okay. So I'm trying to be in a place where I just identify it. I identify and I act accordingly. And then if I'm able, and it's a hard thing to do, but if I'm able to kind of, like pull my mind away from this intense, powerful feeling, then I suffer quietly. What happens is I just acknowledge that I'm going through something, and that I, especially not during, cannot solve this. Because if I'm, you have depression, right? That's where it's heavier for you. Is depression where it's heavier for you? Less the thoughts, more the depression.
Yeah, the depression. When it hurts me like in the past, it's more depression, and last time I had my episode, it's more anxiety, because it's my first time to experience physical symptoms, like I had bleeding in my mouth and chest pain,
Yeah.
That's I realized. Oh, this is how anxiety feels like.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, it has different levels of.
Yeah. I'm more of a depressed. Like I just, especially in winters, I have occasional, sometimes more than occasional days. I just couldn't move and I couldn't get out of the house. I couldn't do simple things.
Yeah.
And I feel really bad, especially being a comedian. I think in winter, get out of the house when it's dark in the evening. It's really hard sometimes.
Yeah. I get that. I feel like I just battle through.
Mm-hmm.
It's my ancestry, you know.
Have you cancelled shows because of this?
Rarely, I don't think. Maybe if I knew that somebody could replace me, or like I take it to stage. Like if I'm depressed, I take it to stage. I will tank a show, no problem. But I would like to, and I also find it interesting in art, on an art level, to bring depression to the stage and see what happens. A lot of the times is, I think part of the reason I got better as a comedian was because I was looking for the bottom of the barrel. So I will go on stage and I will say that I hate everything, or I'm super depressed or whatever, and then I'll find my way to make that funny. And if I can't, at least I tried. You know, and I feel that that's the bottom of the barrel, because this is the stuff you're not supposed to talk about if you're trying to make people laugh. So there's the outrageous shit, which is all the normal topic that you might bring up, rape, race, whatever, and then there's the actual thing that could make people just feel bad or sad in the moment. And I feel that's more of a challenge, and I think you're not the only one going through it. It's like you and I were talking right now.
Yeah.
And I think people in the audience on different levels, have depression and anxiety, and they want to hear it.
Yeah. I think talking about depression on stage is very liberating.
Yeah.
Because usually in real life, it's something people very feel ashamed to talk about. But as comedians, we are so open about this.
Yeah.
And I realize lots of pain and suffering from it come from the stigma around it and the judgment we have towards ourselves and the shame we feel. And once we start to talk about it, then the shame is away, then you get way less stuff to deal with.
Yeah, I agree with I agree with that. There was one woman, I think it was a year later or something like that. I was performing somewhere, and she came up to me after that performance, and she said, "Hey man, I saw you a year ago, and you were talking about feeling like inside of yourself, you're two people, like you have an alien inside you, something like that, and that you're battling your own brain." And she said that really helped me, like to just that idea of me again, like battling my own brain and trying to win, and that kind of made sense to her because she didn't think about it that way, and it really helped her in such a way that she went to the U-Bahn, and then she realized I'm the same guy, and she came back to the club just to tell me that really helped her. And I saw this film the other day called Green Knight, which is all about manhood and the hardship of manhood. And I was weeping at the end of this movie. Like, my wife hated it because it was all about being a man. But we had later a very interesting conversation when I told her, like, look, this is stuff I go through in my own head. But it made me feel like that it's such an important part of art to be able to, manifest, like to represent and bring out something so the other person doesn't feel like they're all alone. And you talk about depression on stage, and I don't talk about it with other people, then you're basically telling me that you're like me, and that there are more people, that I'm not crazy, I'm not alone, it's a phenomenon that's happening. Yeah, it's very hard to feel that way, especially when you're going through it.
Yeah, it is like I feel because I actually start to do comedy because I was depressed during the middle of a depression a few years ago. So I kind of feel like I have the obligation to share, because at that time I was suicidal.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't believe I could survive, and I remember my friends told me like there's more meaning in life, and there's points, there's more beauty in life, and the life is great. And I just at that point I just couldn't believe it. I was like, this is so shit. How can it be better? How can I feel good? Like, it's not possible. And then magically, I break through, and I realize what they said is true. So I feel like, what if at that time someone like me has told me that it's fine, and if I go through the treatment and to really work on it, things will go better.
Yeah.
But then at that time, I didn't know anyone who's depressed. Or probably I knew a lot of people who's depressed. They just, none of them talk about it. I only know one guy who I know had depression. I tried to talk with him. He said he doesn't want to talk about it because it's something in the past. And now I was like, after I break through, I was like, I just want to be the person I couldn't find at that time.
Yeah.
Because if someone like me talk about it with the me from the past, I wouldn't feel so hopeless.
Yeah.
Because if you know there are so many people been through exactly what you've been through and they're happy now, then you realize you just need to believe it, then you'll break through. But if you don't know there's such possibility, you think you are the only one who's experienced this, and you are the only one who's going to figure it out, then it's just like, how could you have hope and the motivation?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also, first of all, it's amazing that you got to that place, you know, and I think two things. I think one is that is a good example of working on your own brain. The minute you go through something like that, you also see how much strength you have.
Yeah.
You're like, I have the ability to take myself out of that place, and the more we're able to do that, the better it gets, you know, I think. And the other thing is, I think it's beautiful. I think if you go on stage and you make, or even doing this, you know, podcast, which is actually the reason I agreed to do it, is because maybe someone will listen to this and go, oh wait, I have these same things that I'm going through, and it's pretty beautiful to say it out loud. I actually find, like, I also have suicidal thoughts, and I find them pretty, recently at least, I find them pretty relieving. Like, it's pretty good to know that that's an option, you know? Like, I think Louis C.K. has this whole bit where, like, you're here, you haven't killed yourself today, that's an achievement, right? So, because you always have the option. It's like, and I like that idea. I like that idea because it feels like at the bottom you have a choice, you know? And then you don't have to choose it. It's always there, you know? It's like you're flying a plane. You always have, you know, the thing where you can bail out of the plane. But why? Why do it? So you can the plane could almost crash. The fact that you have an option.
So let me rephrase you. Do you mean that thinking this way is liberating because you realize you are alive? It's not because you failed to commit suicide, but because you chose not to commit suicide, because you are fighting and you are making this active decision.
Yeah, it's that, and it's the idea that that's always an option. So let's try something else. You know, it's not like this option is going away. You know what I mean? Like, I want to kill myself. Do we really have to do it now? Wait, let's wait. Let's see what else is out there, you know, and then you can explore. Even if you feel like, I feel really weak today and I don't want to leave the house, that's fine. Let's wait a week. You can always kill yourself in a week and a day. You know what I mean? Like, just wait. Just wait a bit.
So, do you talk with your own suicidal thoughts?
Well, I gotta admit, they're not that strong. They've always been there, but it's not that strong. But yeah, on some level, I do find it comforting. Like when I go on a plane, right, and I think about the option of the plane going down. I think about It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not that I don't want to continue living,
Mm-hmm.
but if I die right now, it's fine. You
Uh-huh.
know, if I leave this house and I die, that's all right.
Do
I
you
don't
s-
want to.
Do you
I don't,
sometimes hope you sit on a plane and hope it will?
I don't want to die. I
Okay.
don't want to die because I like life.
Okay, you like life.
I like life. I don't like everything that happens in life. I don't like the fact that sometimes I'm so anxious and I suffer, and I don't like that I suffer. But I think I also have an instinct of understanding that the suffering will go away, especially because I've been through a lot of places where it doesn't go away for a while, and you keep thinking that, and then at some point it goes away. So I try to make a mental note of that. I try to make a mental note and then remember this will pass. So that's why I'm like, you know, because I think, I don't know exactly how your suicidal thoughts are, but it's always like an option to end everything now. It's very now, you know, I feel like it's very now. But I feel like, okay, if you know that it's there, right, you release it for a little bit and you go, let's see. I mean, it could be now, next week. Why am I in a hurry to do this thing? So now, you know, and suddenly you feel a little better, suddenly, and then you can find your way through it, because at the end of the day, unless you're like really clinically in a problem, I feel like you'll be able to find your way out at some point. And that gives you some strength, you know, even go to a therapist or take a pill or just say fuck the world, just stay in bed, fuck it, like stay in bed, so what will happen? It's better than the other option. So now if I reach the very bottom point, everything else is meaningless, like other than maybe my relationship and things like that. But even then I'm like, I tell my wife, look, I just need time by myself, or I'm in a bad mental place right now. I need what I need, and then that's what I do. So I think if you make yourself that space, I think that helps. I can't say to anybody who really feels that way, and I don't want to say I'm for it at all. I'm not. But what I'm saying is, I feel like if you accept it, if you're like, okay, that's an option, but now let's look at point zero, and point zero is right now I just feel like shit. So I'm just gonna cancel everything. I don't care. I'm just gonna cancel everything and stay in bed for 4 days. And then when I wake up, maybe I'll feel like I'm able to make a phone call.
When you cancel everything, do you like judge yourself a lot?
No, I don't. I try not to. I try to fix, like if I cancel something, I try to say, look, I have a problem. Let's do it next week. Or if I cancel a show, which I rarely do, I'll call, I'll write another comic. Can you do this? And then I write that option to that person. I'm just like, just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. I'm just gonna try and you know, and clear everything.
When you cannot get out of bed, what do you do?
Stay in bed.
What do you do?
In bed, I sleep. I watch shit on TV. I try, when I'm in that mood, I try to not watch things. If I feel that what I'm watching is making me sad, I turn to something else. Because this is really easy to fall into the rabbit hole of, it's interesting, but it's also sad. So I try to, let's say, watch something that makes me feel light. Maybe I try to meditate. Maybe,
do you brush your teeth?
I don't know. I go to the shower. I can be in the shower for 3 hours.
Okay.
That makes me feel better.
Okay. I like to take baths.
Yeah.
I think like in winter time, it's very often like I really couldn't get up, like just fear I want to die. But sometimes I just like trick myself a little bit. I negotiate with myself. I'm like, okay, you don't want to get up. You feel what outside is so cold, then you don't want to move. Then what do? Okay, then I ask my boyfriend to run the bath for me, and really hot water. Then I tell myself, okay, how about I just run 10 meters, jump into the water. Then you can lie in the bath instead of lying in bed. Then after I do nothing in bath for 30 minutes, my whole body is fucking hot. Then I get up, I'm like, oh, I'm too hot. I don't want to lie down in bed anymore. Maybe I can walk around in the house a little bit.
Okay.
Then I'm like, okay, maybe now it's time I can put the pants on. Maybe also a shirt, and maybe I can eat breakfast. So like a little by little, get myself out.
Yeah, that's good. Like the self-guiding kind of. But that means you're in control in a way, you know. That's good.
I like since I start to treat my depression, I haven't had a days like just lying in bed for many days. Also because I live with my partner, so
Yeah.
if I really don't get out, he try to drag me out. Also, I have two dogs, so
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I cannot just lie in bed and not walk them.
yeah. Yeah, dogs help.
Yeah.
Dogs help.
But when I'm depressed, it's also a big issue. Like for example, when my dog come to see me when I'm in bed, they look at me, then I start to, uh, uh, I start to think like they are talking with me, like they are saying you are a fucking piece of shit. Why don't you get up and walk me? Like I fucking hate you and you are horrible mom. You traumatize me, like all these kind of things.
You're getting judged by your dogs.
Yeah. And I often like picture that panda goes to see a therapist and tell the therapist how horrible a mom I am and traumatize him and he has like intimacy issue and he was neglected as a child, all kind of stuff.
That's good for stage, by the way. But you know, dogs are very binary dogs. They're very binary creatures. They can feel sad because they want to be next to you, or they can, you know, they never think in complex manners like you just said. Like they don't.
Yeah, sure. How do you know?
I know dogs. I know dogs.
In my imagination, panda is very judgmental.
No, dogs are not judgmental. The dogs are very pack-like creatures. They're more about, you know, survival and play and.
I know what you said is right, but in my crazy mind,
It's you judging yourself through the eyes of the dog, basically.
Yeah.
I understand that, but it's good that you trick your mind. I mean, I think that's what we're talking about generally. Even when I, you know, even when I talk about the suicidal thoughts and stuff, it's a matter of tricking yourself into helping yourself out.
When you are in bed for days, do you eat?
I'm usually not in bed for days. I don't have that kind of depression. I do move. I just, for me, it's like I'm also connecting between my mental health and my body. So I feel weak. So it's more about feeling weak. So the last few days, I'm just been feeling weak. So what I know is going to happen is it's going to take me hours to do anything. So I'm very compassionate with myself. I'm like, you're in the bath, it's too long, that's fine. I'm gonna go lie in bed after the bath, that's fine. I'm gonna go sit by the computer, okay. You didn't do anything in front of the computer, and you watched some shit, that's fine. So I try to not add judgment, not add sadness, not add anything, because I realize I'm weak. It's like beating a puppy. You know, I'm just weak, so I'm accepting that perspective on myself, and I'm being very compassionate to myself because I realize I'm just not gonna do the things that I said I would do, and that's it, and that's fine.
When I have this type of days, very often I look back in time, I realize it's because I didn't give myself a break for very long.
Yeah.
I think I don't know you, but in my culture, especially in my family, like we had a very tough background. My mom never had holidays or vacations.
Oh.
She works 7 days per week when it's busy and 12 hours per day. So we don't have this concept of weekend, work-life balance. And for me, like it's very often that I have like two different direction of the problem. One problem is like when I'm depressed, I couldn't get anything done, and that's very frustrating. But the other direction is that I went into a very good flow. I feel super like productive. I feel I'm on top of the world. Then I'm suddenly crushed. Then I realize, oh, I enjoy this flow so much that I didn't give myself even one break for 6 months or 8 months. Then it crashes.
Yeah, I get that. I try to be very attentive to my Sometimes I'm too attentive. Sometimes I let myself go too much.
Mm-hmm.
But I try to be very attentive to like what my body and what my mind needs right now.
As artists, do you like be mindful about your work-life balance? Do you have one day per week that you just do for your life?
No, but I do have. So my whole. It's probably more like my mental balance, right? This is just, I look at it as a map of mental balance. What do I need? What does my surrounding need of me? And where does the energy go? So if I feel like I'm at home, but I'm depressed or I'm anxious and that doesn't give anything to my wife, even though she's next to me, and I go like, okay, but so now it's not about the relationship, it's about my mental health. So maybe I need some stability, and if I need some stability, let's find it. So what will make me feel better? And then I look at the idea of the work week and I go like, okay, so maybe if I do sports twice a week, and maybe if I have a day that starts this way and ends that way, and then I do a show, let's see how that makes me feel. And then I start doing that, and then it makes me feel better. And then I go, okay, I understand that this makes me feel better. So now I feel better at home as well. And that affects my relationship better. But then if I get too much into that, then I don't pay enough attention to my relationship. And therefore I should probably on a day or on a night find some time for me and Hila to go and do something. So it kind of like, this is always in flux. I never have like a plan in place. I have kind of an idea of a plan in place that I would like to have, but then it's like a blueprint that's open to whatever is actually happening.
Like since you said you are always like a little bit hyper and anxious, when you start a relationship, in this relationship, do you feel like this affects how you form the bonding and the relationship with your partner?
The hyper part? I don't know.
Your anxiety?
My anxiety, yeah, for sure. I have to, like, the first thing that anxiety attacks is the most important things that you have, right? So it's your relationship, and your career, and then your survival, and all that kind of stuff. So it attacks it many times. Sometimes I let it slip in, and then it creates some chaos, and then I notice it, and then I apologize for it, or sometimes it created some chaos, and something interesting came from it. But usually I try to separate. Like I will share with my wife what my anxiety is, and it took me many years to open up and talk about it. But I will try not to get her entangled in it. I will try to say, it's like saying, I have a flu right now, right? So there's one part of me that when I'm weak, I don't even want to be exposed to her because I don't want her to see me as weak. But I realized that, and then I realized it's bullshit, and I should be there, like she should see me in all my states. At the same time, I try not to let all the fucking bullshit dialogue in my head to spew out at her, because she's not at fault, So I feel like when I manage to maintain some sort of inner me, outer me balance, that's good.
When you talk about your anxiety, you have all the tools, and over the years, did you find something really work for you, and you think can be shared with others easily?
I'd say the most important thing that I've learned, and again, I don't have any. It's like a wild horse. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. I think therapy is important. I think talking to someone on a weekly basis is important. I think if you're in a crisis mode or you're feeling anxious for a long while and you don't know how to deal with it, I think pills are good. Yeah, I wouldn't think. I would think less about, oh, I'm getting addicted to something, or oh, I'm gonna have to be dependent on something my entire life. I think more about, oh, my life is gonna be considerably better for the next period of time, which is, I think, good. And I think the third thing is identification, like identification and admittance. Those are the two things that I think are most important. So identify that this is the way you're feeling, and admit it to yourself, admit it to others. Be in a state of not ignoring where you are, because that leads to problems. That leads to judgment. If I am now acting in a weird way and it's not because of anxiety, then what is it? It's got to be something else. And my brain is, filled with options. Anything could go. Maybe it's your relationship, maybe it's your career, maybe you're just an asshole, maybe you should kill yourself. A lot of things. Maybe it's just a disease in a mental weird disease that's called anxiety and depression. And maybe it's just the thing that's unfair, but it happens again and again, and it will never go away. But if you identify it easier, quicker, and admit it, and say, this is just what's happening, and just accept the woe is me that is life sometimes. Some people don't have arms, then I think it makes you feel better. Then it's easier to cope.
Last year, I think it made lots of people to start to take mental health seriously, because it's such a weird period. Like we are all experiencing a new reality no one has experienced before.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with it? How did you survive?
It was actually not that hard for me, surprisingly. I knew I needed an outlet, so I started to do the live streams twice a week. I needed the stage is something I need. It's like getting out poison from a wound every time, right? So I knew I needed it, and I also knew that I wanted to keep my comedy up. So I needed some. I didn't want to let go. I know that comedy is like a muscle. You have to keep training it, So I did that, and that really helped me. And I was just trying to be very attentive to my mental health, and also I felt like the world kind of disappeared. There's no FOMO. There's no like fear of missing out. Like I don't. Everybody's doing a thing and I'm not doing it. It's like everybody's in the same shit, And then it's just, I'm glad, I'm happy. And there was something nice about walking the streets and having no one there. So I don't think it put me more into anxiety. I think it allowed me to rest, and feel like I am allowed to rest.
Really? I remember in winter you were not doing so great. We were briefly in contact.
And winter is probably hard. I don't even remember. Maybe I just put it out of my mind.
Then you went back to Israel.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That point, before I went back to Israel, I had that. Until that point, I was doing okay. I was doing good. And then those 2 months, it's good that you remember that. Those 2 months suddenly became really hard for me. And I think it had to do with the fact that I felt like my wife was also not working, and we were like, she was working, but she was working from home, and I would, and there weren't any shows, and I don't know. It was just like, until that point things were okay, and then suddenly, maybe because it was winter, it just started to be too much. I was just like, I felt like I'm always in the same scenario, maybe because it also became colder, I don't know. And I felt like I'm spending too much time in the same space with my wife all the time, and I didn't have any routine, and I was like, I felt I was going nuts, and I needed to get out. And that's when I went to Israel, and that was good for me. I was like, okay, I need an out. And Israel was sunny, and then I saw all my friends that I haven't seen in a while, and I could get out, and those 2 months were becoming more and more difficult for me, for sure.
You don't have any routines?
I do now. So after all this kind of stuff, I've started to develop a routine, which I sometimes, fuck around with, like when I feel a little off, which is fine. So I try to wake up around 11, 12. And then I take a long shower. Like I have a long morning routine. And then I try to either go to a lake, which is in summer, but we'll see what I'll do. And then go to the factory or go work somewhere, right? And then I write, or I edit, or I do something. And then I go to shows at night, and then I go home. So I'm trying to make that my normal routine. And now, because I saw that, first of all, every time I write and every time I do any physical activity, I feel better. And I think it's very connected. I feel like when you're, I don't know, maybe it's the hyper thing, but I have to get the energy out. So writing is getting energy out, performing is getting energy out, and doing exercises. So that's all good. And then if I do that on a regular basis, I also feel like I'm stabilizing. And then it's easier for me to socialize, easier for me to spend time, like quality time with my wife, as opposed to like being half the time in my head. So when I spend quality time with my wife, I feel closer to her. Relationship becomes better. So yeah, that's kind of like what I do.
Yeah, I think having a routine is very important.
Yeah.
Last quarantine really taught me this. Like if I get up now, so in the last, let's say, 8 months, I start to develop my morning routines,
Okay.
and now
Sounds like your Moni routine.
yeah, morning routine. Yeah, so morning routine. So now I'm at a point, if I wake up, I don't do my routines, my day is fucked.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what to do. I feel just I'm floating in time and space.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. When I stop my routine, but I also have this other side. So I'm so good at not being in a routine because the way I used to write was very instinctual. And that worked for me for a very long time. But that's only when I have projects. So every time when I write, I have projects. So the projects will be a few years. So I can wake up in the morning, instead of thinking about life, I'm thinking about something creative, right? So it's just floating around in my head, and then I might have a meeting. And so it kind of fills my day. When I finish projects and I have to redevelop stuff, I get completely lost. And then the first thing I do is like I live in the ether, and then I wait, and some things sometimes happen and comes out, and sometimes I have to build a system for myself. And then if I don't do that system, I might get lost as well. I think it's very important to have a routine.
Yeah. While you're talking, I just feel it's so fascinating that we are two grown as adults talking about these small things as if we have no control in our behavior, like really trying to contain ourselves just to do the minimal things in life. I think that's really fascinating, that knowing I'm not the only one struggling to just be functioning.
It's not normal to function. Like it's not normal. It's not a normal. Our whole life is not normal. I think it's like if we were now in old times where we were tribes, that's a whole different behavior, and agriculture is a different behavior, and where we are now is a different thing. We're not mentally disposed towards those things. Even when you listen to these like millionaire guys or whatever they talk, they beat themselves to death to do shit. And I think I don't want to do that. I don't want to beat myself to death to make millions of dollars. I'm not interested in that. But it makes sense that you don't want to do anything. You know, I feel like it makes sense. It's like I had this thing I said on stage. So the only reason I get up is because it becomes painful at some point if I stay lying down. Like you have to participate in the game, right? It's like it's a necessity, which is why I feel like everything is an illusion as well. Why would things not develop in a way where we don't have to do anything? You know, why do we have to eat and sleep and do things? Why can't we just be? You know, if that's the whole point of just being, why can't we just be? So this is a game going on. Something is always moving and shifting. But I don't think it's supposed to be easy. Even if when you look at someone, I can tell you that people have told me things from the side that, like someone recently told me, whenever I think of someone that's living in the moment, I think of you. It's like, man, are you insane? Like, this is my struggle my entire life. Is to do exactly what you just said.
For an anxious person, the least thing they can do is to be living in the moment.
Exactly. And I'm
They're everywhere, but not there.
Yeah, and maybe you've asked me a question about once and I answered you what I want life to be because that's what I'm striving to, and you got the impression that this is what it is. But it's not. No one has like a simple, good life. No one. You know, you'd have to be a fucking anomaly. You'd have to be the opposite of Down syndrome. You know, it'd be up syndrome. You know, it's just like everything is fantastic all the time, and I can just be functional and do stuff. The people who have one side covered are probably suffering from something on the other side. You know, so we're adults, but that's the fact that we're dealing with this. You know, that's good. You know, why is anybody else's life better? Anytime I see these family of smiley people, I'm like, somebody's raping someone. I don't know. Something's going on there. I don't trust this. You know.
Yeah, that's a nice way to think about things. Like fuck them, their family is happy, but they are fucking each other.
Yeah, something's up. Something's up. There's got to be a compensation thing. There's a whole thing now where people I don't think it's now. I think it's always been, but now it has media attached to it. It's like this perfect person. Well, based on what? On Christian ideals? What are we talking about here? We are disgusting, horrible animals. All of us. We're disgusting, horrible animals. The fact that we don't kill each other on a daily basis is a miracle. You know? So let's just take everything into proportion. It's not normal. The way we were living is not normal. It's good. It has a lot of benefits. But it's hard to find your way in the world. Like it's hard. Like the whole idea of existence is insane. We don't have the brain capacity to understand what it means to be alive. Not on an individual level, and not even in a social, like on a social world structure level. Like we don't know what we're doing here, and having the individual have to figure that out it's insane. So to think that there is some, I mean, the only balance you can find, I feel like, is some sort of inner balance, and I think that inner balance has to do with the specificality of who you are. Can you find peace with yourself with all the bullshit that you have to deal with within? It's not can you find the ultimate peace where nothing bothers you. It's like, can you find peace with the fucking, moronic accident that you are? And, car crash that you are from within. If you can, that's a nice day. And if you can't, that's a shitty day. Wait, it'll pass, that's what I think. And actually stand-up helped me a lot to figure that out. Because people will identify with anything you say. If you say anything, people will identify with it, which means that they are going through the same thing. They're just pretending better than you.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I come from Chinese culture.
Oh, really? I didn't notice.
Sure, yeah. I come from Chinese culture. My culture is like we live in order to be perfect in the eyes of others. We have very homogeneous life, like we have very homogeneous goals, and everyone is working towards the same goal. And if you are different than most of people, then you are going to have a hard time. So being here and realize actually everyone has their own individual struggle, and the culture I was in is not other people don't have problem, it's that they tried so hard to hide it.
Yeah.
And once I become honest, people start to become honest to me, then I realize, oh, we were all faking it.
Yeah.
And knowing that everyone else is faking, it's very comforting, because I realize first, I'm not alone. Second, I don't need to fake anymore, because why am I faking? Like everyone is suffering. Like I just want to get rid of that mental task, to free some of my mental capacity to actually focusing on just enjoy myself. So my last question for you is, what's your favorite comedy special?
Well, I think there's a lot, but I think Shameless, Louis C.K. Shameless, is probably one of the best. And also, so I can quote a few. So that's one. The other one is Louis C.K. in the Comedy Store. And then I think Dave Chappelle's Age of Spin is quite a masterpiece as well. Yeah, I would say those.
How did you find the courage to say Louis C.K.?
He's a very funny person, and he's hilarious, and he's great at his job. And what he did on his private time, and it has nothing to do with me. And he has to pay for what he did, and it still doesn't make his art less good.
I like his art too. He's a genius. Yeah, cool. So, thank you for your recommendation. Do you have anything to talk with the audience? Maybe someone who suffer from ADHD or anxiety?
If you have ADHD or anxiety, if it comes from hyperness, don't forget you have the H, which means that you have to get energy out. And if you don't do it, it'll run around in your brain. So you gotta do something, and it'll make you feel better.
So, do you want to say goodbye to our audience?
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Follow me on Epic Comedy Berlin, Facebook or Instagram or whatever if you want.
Yeah, whatever. Thank you for listening and thank you for being alive. Bye bye.
Bye bye.